Welcome, Miami. Welcome, South Florida. Welcome, America. Welcome, everybody. This is another episode of Miami Cop Talk. I'm Raul, and I'm here with my partner, Robert. And we got a great guest today here for you. Robert, who do we have?
Well, today we'd like to talk about police relations, right? We're going to deal with the issues that others don't talk about. And today we want to talk about community relations and how to improve relationship between the community and law enforcement. But more importantly, who's responsible for oversight on the civilian side of the city of Miami? We've got a great guest. His name is John Quick. He is the independent counsel for the Miami Civilian Investigative Panel. This guy is an incredible attorney. He's accomplished. We'll have his bio on our website for you to view because I think it's really worth discussing. But before we start, Raul, what do you say we give a shout out to our sponsors?
Absolutely. Our supporters on the Miami Cop Talk show are Mainland Marlins podcast
Tommy.
with Tommy. He's our producer. He's amazing. Knows a little bit about baseball. Look him up. Mainland Marlins, and we have Share Your Heart, also one of our great supporters, Miami Tactical, and New Era Alliances. Those are our supporters, and again, if you support the show, you appreciate what we're doing and bringing the information that we're bringing out to the community on Miami Cop Talk. Give us a call on our website, miamicoptalk.com. Give us a shout out. Our email is 305@miamicoptalk.com, and we're on all social media platforms, Miami Cop Talk.
Yeah, and happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you.
Yeah.
If you're going to go out there and drink this afternoon, please drink responsibly, although I understand that there's a lot of social distancing still. I just had my shot. I will continue my vaccine shot, that is, and I will continue to social distance, but I think I'm going to drink a little green.
I've always social distanced from him, even when there wasn't any COVID.
On my 15s.
Yeah.
Hey, this guy was always late for the 15s. Why were you there? Let's talk about that.
Coffee and donuts, man. Hey, there's a guy that does review panels here on. Let's watch what we say here. So
we're retired, so
yeah,
I think we have immunity.
Good.
Without further ado, why don't we bring in this incredible? I still think you're a young man, John. Man, I'm looking at your resume, and boy, your bio just goes on forever. So why don't we bring you in, and why don't you give us an overview of what you're doing, and certainly the Civilian Investigative Panel and your role there. Good morning.
Good morning, John Quick. Is he on?
There
we go.
He is.
There he is. He may be frozen, or he's doing the mannequin challenge. Yeah.
All right. It's the luck of the Irish here.
The luck of the Irish. You got a bad signal.
John, can you hear us? Can you reboot?
Well, before we, as we're working on getting John on the air here, I could tell you that when Robert first said, "Hey, we got John Quick coming on the show," it's a little humorous here, but I said, "What? John Wick?" and when I look at this guy's resume, I mean, he really blows Keanu Reeves out of the park. I mean, all the things that he's done, from being on the community relations board chair at Miami-Dade, Friends of the Miami-Dade Public Library, the president, 11 Judicial Circuit Historical Society. He was the chair on that. Village of Palmetto Bay Charter Review Committee member. You name it. Miami-Dade County Mayor's Blue Ribbon Task Force, Historical Miami, Secretary of and Treasurer to and Board of Trustee, Educational Chair. I mean, this individual is all over the board. He really knows Miami and Dade County. His background, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he Boston, right? Boston. He went to Boston College. I'm not too sure. There he is. But he'll give us a little intro on who he is and background. Hopefully, he's got a better signal now. John, are you on? Can you hear us?
I am. I could hear you before. I don't know what was going on from my end, but I apologize for that. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
And to you too, sir.
It wouldn't be, 9:15 in the morning if we didn't have a little bit of technical difficulties.
Correct. And correct me if I'm wrong. Boston? You went Boston?
I went to law school at Boston University. I did my undergraduate at UCLA. So I've been on both coasts.
Yeah, so I'm sure you enjoyed your St. Patrick's Day up in Boston a few times, right?
It was a pretty lively time, that's for sure.
Faneuil Hall. I love Faneuil Hall.
Yeah, so BU was not too far, just a couple of T stops away from Faneuil Hall. So, and I met my amazing wife up in Boston. So it was a good time up there, that's for sure.
Well, I will tell you, John, she's an incredible woman, as if you don't know yourself, right?
Yeah.
So we look forward to having her on a future show because we'd like to get her perspective on education.
I would say she's even better than I am. I mean, she's a dynamic, amazing woman. So I will talk to her for you.
Outstanding. Please put in the good word.
Yes.
So, John, we're talking about, law enforcement. We want to provide, as I share with you offline, we want to provide the viewers and people an insider's view into police work and public safety, but not just from law enforcement, right? From the stakeholders as well. And, let's talk about something very controversial. We've seen on TV recently what's going on in South Beach. We've seen the officers go hands-on with subjects who were just unruly. And then you have, we had the protest early this year in Miami. We had some officers also go hands-on. I understand that the civilian investigative panel oversaw some of those investigations, but let's look at this and break it down and take a look at what is the civilian investigative panel, what your role is, what your authority is, and then how do we improve relations?
Sure. So the Miami Civilian Investigative Panel, I'll call it the CIP for short, as it can be a little wordy. They were created by charter mandate within the city of Miami back probably a little over 15 years ago. And really what their role is to investigate any complaints against police officers. They can be directly filed with the CIP. They also have authority. Every IA investigation file gets sent over to the CIP. They do their own independent investigation. And then the CIP can start their own investigations if they see what they feel like might be a pattern of conduct. And the CIP itself is, there are 13 members to the CIP, or 13 seats. They are nominated from within the CIP and then appointed by the two appointees for each commissioner in the city of Miami, two for the mayor, and then the police chief also has an appointee that sits on the CIP as well. They're manned with executive director, assistant executive director, two independent investigators who are all four former law enforcement. So it's a good group. They also review policy and procedures of the department. So if there's any changes to policies, they go through the CIP, or if the CIP itself feels like there's any issues that they might want to take up themselves, they can make recommendations to the police chief. Ultimately, in terms of authority, the authority to make that change rests with the department and the chief. The same thing with investigations for police officers. There's a police officer's bill of rights, which I know you guys are all aware of, and I'm sure many, if not all of the viewers are aware of. So that limits the authority of the oversight panels. They cannot, at least under the current way that officer's bill of rights is drafted, they cannot impose any sort of punishment or anything like that. They can make findings, make recommendations, but ultimately that rests with, at least in the city of Miami, rests with the police chief.
John, let me ask you a question. I'm born in here in Miami, and I know the history that we have here in Miami. McDuffie, Lozano, Mercado. We've had unrest in Miami, and I can understand the history behind CIP and why the city may have enacted the CIP. But as an individual who spent 30 years in government, and again, the fact of the matter is my trust in government is not that great. I mean, that's just me. I'm a little radical in my views. But the fact of the matter is we do have a grand jury. We do have the state attorney's office. We have internal affairs. There are so many oversight layers to what law enforcement does, specifically the CIP. And I'm all for accountability. I'm all for transparency. Why was that additional layer put in place? I mean, can you give us a history behind that? I have an idea, but I want our listeners to hear from you, from an individual that's on the CIP.
Yeah, and I think the difference between what the CIP does and what the other agencies that you mentioned do is they do it all out in the open. So I think that's a big part of it. I mean, IA investigations are confidential.
Sure.
Grand jury has confidentiality rules. What takes place in the state attorney internal discussions those don't necessarily see the light of day, or if there's any plea bargain deals, those don't necessarily see the light of day. Whereas everything with the CIP is done in the open. They have public meetings. They meet every month. Actually, we had our monthly meeting yesterday, so it's the third Tuesday of every month is the full panel meeting. Plus, they have other meetings in between for committees. So it's all done in the open. The complainants can all testify and give their version of the story. The police officers are all invited to testify, give their version of the story. Plus, we have a wealth of knowledge through the files, the investigative files that come from either at the state attorney's office, FDLE, IA, and then there are the CIP's own investigators as well, do their own investigations, and many times come up with additional information or maybe find additional witnesses. So that's a big part of it, and I think that was a big push for it, is that this is really done out in the open so everybody can see. I mean, obviously there are certain public records confidentiality issues we deal with. Yes. We make do with it. The other issue is that the 13 members of the panel, they're any member of the community. I mean, they could be you, they could be me, they can be whomever, and they range in terms of their wealth of experience. So, we have a former retired police officer, and the insight that he gives in terms of how the police may see it is really valuable. And then we have a psychologist and the insight that she gives in terms of what people may be thinking in terms of interactions. It really is invaluable. And so you get those different experiences that come together through those 13 panel members. And I think that really helps to really bring out a robust discussion in terms of, what's here, what happened, was there anything improper, what was done properly, are there any learning experiences, things like that, and the public sees that as well. And I think it really helps with, in terms of police community relations, it is a real asset to the department and to the city for that. I mean, you saw some of these, you alluded to the protests over the summer, and Miami, obviously there were arrests and there have been complaints stemming from that, but the experience that we had in Miami was very different than other cities, and I think a lot of that comes with the city's embracing, the elected officials embracing the oversight because they've seen the value that it brings to police community relations.
So a couple points, because I'm reading from the City of Miami's description of this Civilian Investigative Panels, the CIP. And for those of you that are just tuning in, we're speaking with John Quick, the independent counsel to the City of Miami Civilian Independent Council, also known as CIP. So one, your oversight is, or actually your purview is not to investigate, we spoke with Chief Colina, retired Chief Colina, recently retired from the City of Miami, who told us he welcomed the civilian panel because he saw it as a way to, it's a way of added accountability, but it's also a way to ensure that his former agency was maintaining top professionalism, and so that's why he welcomed it. But let's talk about your experience with the cases you've handled for the investigative panel. We're trying to give the audience a sense of the difference in South Florida to other areas of the country where they've experienced more problems with law enforcement, breaches of policies, breaches of bad conduct amongst officers. How would you measure what you've seen through cases as far as the police training, as far as the police officer professionalism here in comparison to other areas? Can you give an idea how we rate?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, being in the oversight world, we communicate with other oversight bodies around the country and internationally as well. And in terms of, what I would call extreme egregious behavior, we are far, or alleged extreme behavior. We are far lower than in other cities. And I think because Miami has had a long history of having, oversight. They also had it in the county. I know they're working to bring that back. So it's I think the issues here, you obviously you have different experiences and whatnot, but you don't see a lot of what I would consider extreme allegations like you would see elsewhere. You do have a large number of procedural violations, which are no less important than others. I mean, I say that because, if you talk to every police chief I've ever spoken with, when they talk about things like, making sure the body worn camera is on, filling out the right reports, they talk about that is equally as important as other things, because if you're going loose on something like filling out the right forms, chances are down the line you might not be complying with other things in the future, or you might run the risk of forgetting about them. And it's important for documentation purposes as well. But in terms of like what you've seen elsewhere in other cities, we saw it over the summer with some of those violent clashes. Those have been fewer and further between in the more recent times. Obviously, I recognize, as you mentioned, McDuffie and those types of interactions historically, but in the more recent interactions, they have been fewer and further between. Which again, I think is credit to the CIP. It's credit to the Chief Kalina, who he did come to the CIP. He did embrace it and encourage his officers to participate because it is an important process for that, like I said, that police community relations. And if your community believes in your police, it's going to be safer for your police department out there, because you're going to get people who are willing to work with them and willing to talk to them. And that's why I think it's such an important tool in their tool belt.
John, you've given us a lot of information. I appreciate it. You letting us know what CIP does. I want to ask you a question. Again, Cuban background, there's a saying I've used before. It says, hablando la gente se entienden, which basically means, talking, people understand what's going on. And you're basically, you're talking, giving us a lot of good information. A lot of people may not know what the CIP, was enacted for and what it does. And so I appreciate everything you're saying. Let me ask you, as far as policies and procedures, policy failures, whatnot, there's this Florida CFA and CALIA. Do you all in the CIP get involved in reviewing policy to see, again, if there is an absence of policy and things of that nature? Do you review department SOPs and standing orders and maybe make recommendations to the chief?
Absolutely, and CALIA is a huge resource, and we there's a separate committee that the CIP has called the Policies and Procedure Committee, and I work with them as well, obviously, and they'll review policies from all over the country. They'll review CALIA model policies, and they have a policy analyst who she goes in and dives into that information and will make recommendations, or the CIP might bring it up and she will research it. And ultimately what happens is the committee will discuss it, come up with any thoughts they might have, or maybe they think it's good. And then it'll go to the panel, and then the panel will ultimately either approve or modify and make those recommendations to the chief. But absolutely, all of those resources are utilized by the CIP to try to make sure that the policies, the SOPs, all the manuals are the best that they can be in tip-top shape.
One thing comes to mind is as we have launched this show with the intent of bridging the gap and building, like I said earlier, the relationship between community and trust and law enforcement, and vice versa, because I can't think of another profession that has been villainized as much as law enforcement in the recent years, politically on both sides of the aisle. You mentioned about giving credit to the police department, City of Miami, and other police departments down here. I guess dealing with training, preparedness, which prevent us from creating disasters, public disasters that have created in other parts of the country with injustice, calls of injustice. But let me ask you, John, what would be your recommendation for current law enforcement executives to improve the relationship with the community, and same recommendation for the community leaders to improve the relationship with law enforcement? Because I think public safety is always best when there's a mutual collaboration between civilian and sworn law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it would be coming together for a discussion, because I think there have been so many walls over the years that have been built up, and there's a level of distrust. And I think you need it from both sides. Both sides need to kind of get the perspective and understanding of what is from the departments and the officers' standpoint. what are the people that we are serving and protecting? What is their perspective? How do they see things, and how can we improve them? And there's a lot of ways that have officers and departments have done that in the past by making sure that the officers there have either come from that area or know that area, know the people in that area, so that there's that level of trust that's there. Then you also need it from the community stakeholders. You need to understand, listen, the police, there's no doubt about it. I mean, listen, police, they're human, they can make mistakes, but they have a tough job. I mean, going in blind sometimes to a home where you don't necessarily know the layout of the building, that's a tough job, among other things. So, people, you kind of need to have that discussion. And I do think that's a role that the CIP plays, because people do get to have that discussion. I also should mention there has been a mediation program that the CIP created that the department agreed with and approved, that if there's a complainant and an officer for certain type of complaints, they can mediate. And I think that's another good aspect. Actually, this is brand new, started a couple months ago, the first mediation. It's happening this week. And I think that'll be something that'll help as well, because again, it's a way with trained mediators to get people to talk. And once they talk, and once they see face to face, and they see each other, and they see the human aspect, and you can look into each other's eyes, it's a different conversation than if you're having it on social media, or if you're having it with a member of the back and forth through a media intermediary. It's just a different conversation, and you see each other as humans, and that's the biggest thing I think that helps.
Well, John, here's a controversial question, and people that know me, I tend to be a little bit controversial.
As your voice goes down.
Yes, my voice goes down, and I can hear my wife in the background saying, "Hey, be careful what you can ask." But the fact of the matter is, I know a lot of the individuals that serve in the City of Miami Police Department, excellent individuals. There was a great candidate pool of internal applicants for the new chief of police job. The guy that's coming in is, Art Acevedo, very competent, very qualified, Cuban born. I guess he's going to be able to assimilate well into the culture of Miami. But the fact, was CIP ever consulted, or were you guys ever involved in the selection process for the new chief of police of the City of Miami?
No, not that I'm aware. I mean, that falls within the purview of the administration. I mean, we certainly, the CIP has reached out, and they expect to meet with the new chief once he starts. I think he starts in about 6 weeks. But we'll start with him in the onboarding process. I mean, to Mayor Suarez's credit, he has discussed many things with the CIP, and he does reach out to them on issues. I'm not sure that we were. I don't believe we were involved in the hiring, though. But we're certainly eager to work with him, and excited for that prospect to going forward.
I think we all are.
Yeah, no, definitely. We look forward to inviting him also to Chief Acevedo. You have a standing invitation to join us here on Miami Cop Talk. I think this is a brand new forum. For those of you just joining us, we're speaking with John Quick, the independent counsel for the City of Miami Civilian Investigative Panel. Great conversation this morning. John, for those that would like to get a hold of you, where can they get a hold of you? Can you provide a little information?
Yeah, they can reach me. So I'm the independent counsel, but I work at a law firm, Weiss Sirota Helfman. They can reach me via email. It's just my first initial last name, jquick, JQUICK, at wsh-law.com. So W is in Walter, S is in Sam, H is in Harry, -law, LAW.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And, I'm certainly happy to speak with anybody if they have questions or thoughts or anything. I'm more than happy to speak with them.
Well, John, Robert and Raul, remember our names. Throw our names in the hat next time they're picking people for the CIP.
Raul better than me.
Well, as you said, it's an open forum there on the CIP. We can discuss those things that are not confidential on our show on the Miami Cop Talk. But yeah, throw my name in the hat there, and next time you all are picking someone, maybe I can continue my service to the city and our community.
They've got the county one opening up soon too, so you've got 2 opportunities there.
Oh yeah, and there's a soon to be an elected sheriff. That's gonna be fun here in Dade County.
Any thoughts on the front runners?
No
As
thoughts
these
right
lads.
now. There's a number of front runners from what I'm hearing, at least.
Hey, do you have to be law enforcement to run for sheriff?
Not
I
according to
don't
state
think that's a
statute.
requirement.
It's not a requirement. Wow, that's
I don't know 100%, but I don't believe you need to be a sworn law enforcement officer or trained law enforcement officer.
No.
wow.
According to state statute, no. But
Wow.
John, I'd like to extend also an open invitation for you to continue to collaborate with us, because look, we can only make this show better. This show is about, community and strengthening our ties. This is our part of the country. I can't think of a better place to live. I can't think of a better profession to have been a part of for nearly 30 years, law enforcement. But I think the best outcomes are achieved when we continue to collaborate. You couldn't have said any better. Thank you about opening up dialogue and ensuring that we continue to have dialogue. So I want to extend once again that invitation to you to help us collaborate, be part of this show, help us grow. We have a podcast for those of you that are into podcasts. We've been picked up by Spotify, Apple, Google.
It's on every platform. It'll be great to have a regular segment, the CIP report on Miami Cop Talk with John Quick. I like your name, man. That's throws. I was saying it. It reminded me. I go, we got Keanu Reeves coming on the show. Yeah.
I know, and it's a real name too. It's not even a stage name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The real John Quick.
The real John Quick.
Yeah. Listen, I'm happy to continue talking with you guys, and however you think I can help the discussion, I'm more than happy to do it.
That's what it's all about. We need to talk to each other a little bit more. That's a fact. As a community, that's what our theme here is. One community, one voice. So we really need to talk to and agree to disagree if that's the case. But the fact of the matter is, we need to talk to each other.
Precisely.
So, John, any parting thoughts as we come up to we shorted you a couple minutes. I apologize, but we're running a few minutes late behind as typical Miami Hispanic time, right?
No.
Latino time. Any parting words for our audience right now?
No, I think like I said, I think it's just important to engage in the community, whether it's police community relations or whatever you're passionate about, but certainly, engage and like Raul said, listen and hear the other side. And it's okay to disagree, but if you hear and you truly listen, I think that's where we can all grow, and we can ensure that we have a civil discourse and ensure that what's happened sometimes in other parts of the country or the world, doesn't happen here again in Miami.
Right.
Thank you. Outstanding. Yeah. Would you mind doing something for us for the closing out? Can you give us a shout out, Miami Cop Talk?
Yeah. Shout out meaning just say, thank you guys, or.
Yeah. So we can get it in the clip for a video trailer.
All right. Thank you, Miami Cop Talk. I had a great time on your show. Thank you for having me, and, enjoy the rest of your St. Patrick's Day.
Outstanding.
Thank you, John. God bless you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
What do you think?